Howdy, Ags. Welcome to Aggie Growth Hacks, the podcast sponsored by the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M, where we help entrepreneurs improve their business, connect with other Aggie entrepreneurs, and support one another. I'm your host, Greg Martin, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2001.
And I'm your co-host, Chris Hunter, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1998. Whoop!
Well, we got a little bit of a different story for you, Ags. Normally, we talk about an entrepreneur and their business experience, but today we're speaking with Ashley Dunkerley, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2013 and the Communications Director for Texas FFA. Future Farmers of America is an organization that is all about developing the leaders of tomorrow and using the context of the agricultural industry to do so.
So pass it back and listen up to Ashley as she shares some good bull.
Well, welcome back, Ags. We can't wait for this episode. It's really, really unique. Ashley, thank you for joining and thank you for giving your perspective on what I think is a really cool company, really cool association, and really being able to speak into entrepreneurship in our farm and agriculture community. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, you're Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2013, so a little bit less removed than Chris and I from being students at A&M, but far enough out that you're no longer a student. What do you miss about not being a student at A&M?
There is some sort of inherently special atmosphere about College Station in general. I am a second generation Aggie, so I grew up going to College Station all the time, going to football games, other athletic events, other events in general. And there's just something about when you drive into town that's, to me, very calming and very natural. And so I miss that. I miss that ease. I miss just that feeling of, it sounds a little crazy, but it's just something that's comforting about it. I was just there for a football game a couple weeks ago. I was just there for a football game in the fall, and there's just something special about it. It's hard to put your finger on it, but I do miss it quite frequently.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Well, Ashley, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your organization, and why are you passionate about that, and how did you get into that?
So personally, it started at a very young age for me. But to back up just a little bit, FFA, we are cultivating that next generation of leader. Ultimately, our goal is to make a positive difference in the lives of students, developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through ag education. And those are some big words. Those are some very big words and big shoes to fill. But our program has, almost 95 years of doing that. And that's something that's really exciting, is to stand behind a brand that is 95 years strong and has years and years and years of success behind that. I grew up the daughter of an ag teacher. So I was introduced to ag education and FFA at a very, very young age. I think that most of our family vacations were at stock shows. It's very true, very true. A lot of time in Fort Worth and Houston. But with that, it showed me not only my experience and the growth that I experienced through those years, but I got to see how it impacted, hundreds of my dad's students over the years. And it's really cool now to be in the role that I'm in. It's my way of giving back. It's my way of being able to make a difference in hopefully the lives of these students that we have now. We have 156,000 members in Texas in FFA. That is a substantial jump from when I started back in 2013. Actually, it was right after I graduated college, and we were at I believe 80,000. So we're substantially growing. So hopefully that really lends to how great our program actually is, and developing those students for what the future holds, and being the next generation of agriculturalists who are going to feed our world and take care of us.
Well, I love that as you were talking through that, you talk about the purpose, and what you do was to create leaders and to make young men and women better people. And you're going to use the discipline, you're going to use the industry of agriculture, which obviously at Texas A&M, there's A is for agriculture. I mean, that's something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, and that we are world renowned and having that knowledge base, but you get to live it and you get to pour into the next generation of leaders that may continue to stay in agriculture or may go seek employment and fulfillment and career in another industry. But the FFA is something that is so impactful. Anyone who's gone through it says that that is one of the things that has shaped my life, and that shaped the organization are the values of the organization. So can you remind us of what those values are and how, maybe we'll phrase a question a little bit differently. What are the values? And then can you give one example of how you've seen that be most impactful in either your life or in one of the students that you've seen?
Absolutely. I think that values are something that are very ingrained in our program. We are always encouraging, especially in the leadership aspect of the FFA program, is developing the students' individual values and finding what they truly believe in and how they want to live their life and the way that they're going to walk forward. But really for FFA, I mean, our main priority is our students and our members, but we are always rooted in agriculture. That's where our foundation lies. And there's a lot to take from that. You can take those everyday experiences that you learn of caring for something that is growing, and you're learning to manage that and all the responsibilities that come along with that, whether it be an animal, an agri-science fair project, an ag mechanics project, anything that is those hands-on experiences. Those students are learning those skill sets to be responsible and to pick up on, we refer to them as soft skills, but it really develops a person and helps them realize what they want to do and what's important to them to establish those values. But our motto, if anybody's familiar with FFA, they know the motto, learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve. And I really do think that encompasses, the organization's values, the foundation, because those words have been there for a long time, and it's something that we can build our programs on.
That is so awesome. So let me ask, I mean, you said at the beginning that when you first started in 2013, right, there that y'all were at about 85,000 roughly students. And what are you at now?
156,000. That number changes significantly year to year. Not significantly, but in the spring and fall semesters, that changes. So we'll probably be getting a new number here pretty soon. But yeah, it's fantastic. And what's interesting is that is the FFA membership number. That is not including all of the students that are enrolled in ag education. And that number is well over 220,000 students in Texas, because you don't necessarily have to be an FFA member if you're enrolled in an ag education course, but you do have to be enrolled in an ag education course to be an FFA member. So it's pretty cool to think how many students are actually getting that foundational knowledge of what agriculture is and how important it is to our future and, the world that we live in.
So looking back on all of that, that's a massive growth, just really under 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And so has there been any kind of a tipping point that you've noticed, right, that has really been able to substantiate that growth?
That's something that we talk about frequently. We want as many students as we possibly can to experience our programs. I think that really on a local level is where that is experienced heavily. And, I think that our school districts have, and I'm talking broad overview right now because there's a few thousand school districts across the state that have programs, but I think that they do a very good job of adapting and hiring on additional teachers to be able to cover those bases. But that is one area that we are experiencing a little bit of, I guess you would say, growing pains is, the teacher retention and having enough teachers to really fulfill those spots across the state. We constantly have new positions opening because of more positions becoming available. But it also is that we have some of I will go to my deathbed saying this, we have some of the best teachers out there. Our teachers are a different breed. They work way over the regular school hours, and they are so passionate and care so deeply about their students that it's a very challenging job, but we have so many outstanding people that step up to that challenge. But that's up to us in our programs to also cultivate that next generation of ag teacher as well. I mean, that's going hand in hand to going straight into the agriculture industry. It's cultivating and helping those students that, if that's the path that they want to be on, providing the resources that they need to go down that path. But we are on the state level doing our very best to provide resources to our teachers to help make their lives easier. This past fall, we just did our first ever Texas FFA Career Week. And, ultimately with that, we were trying to show a lot of our students, the opportunities that are out there in agriculture, but also we created a 3-week lesson plan for our teachers. So hopefully to help them, take a little bit of burden off of their plate with their classroom resources. We also have a teacher mentor program in the Ag Teachers Association. We're trying to find as many avenues as we can to that. It's hard for me to call it a problem because I'm trying to be an optimist, but it's more or less, relieving any sort of stress we can off of those teachers who work tremendously hard.
Well, Ashley, you've really said, okay, the teachers are key. But it's the students, it's the kids that are the heartbeat of FFA. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously a podcast that is geared more towards entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And I have long said that the agriculture entrepreneur is some of the most amazing and the hardcore entrepreneurs because they have to deal with risks that they can't control at all. How does FFA really help pull out those entrepreneurial disciplines, the entrepreneurial experience, and kind of help speak into the next generation?
I think that's a great question. So in agriculture education in general, it's a 3-circle model. You have the FFA, which is the leadership development aspect. You have classroom. I'm using my hands to show you this. You have the classroom component. And then you have supervised agriculture experiences, which we call SAEs. We are a world full of acronyms. So that's the thing I try to, whenever I'm talking to anyone, I spout these acronyms constantly. I'm like, these people don't know what this is. But the SAE component is so key to our students' development. You can have students that are involved in just classroom. If they're involved in FFA, they have to be involved in the classroom and the SAE part to get that full, well-rounded experience. But the SAE part really is the hands-on part of the program. And let's say, for example, we're going to go something very stereotypic for FFA. We're going to say somebody is raising a animal for their project. And like I said, that's very stereotypical. SAEs can range from anything from agri-science fair to, ag mechanics projects to research-based things. There's all sorts of opportunities for any sorts of type of interest, but we're going to go with the basics, or we're going to go with the stereotypical animal project. But within that project, those students are financially responsible for purchasing that animal. They're financially responsible for feeding that animal. They have to take care of it. They have to, manage their entry fees if they're taking them to any sort of stock show. They have to care for it physically and make sure that it's, healthy, but also, groom it and make sure that it is ready to be showed. But there's a lot of things that could, we're dealing with a live animal. There's a lot of things that could happen. I mean, it could get sick. It could have some sort of situation where it needs that extra help. Luckily, that's where the ag teacher comes in. And most of them are very equipped with handling those things and bringing in veterinarians and things like that. But there's a risk inevitably with that. If you put money into something, you don't necessarily know that you're going to get that money back with, winning any sort of compensation from it. But ultimately, that's the purpose of it, is to show those students the responsibility that it takes from getting to point A to point B, and caring for something so genuinely and so wholeheartedly that you're caring for another living organism. That's a lot of people have pets, and I would say growing up, most of my show projects were pets. They still actually, it's been about 14 years since I had a show heifer, but for the remainder of their lives, they lived out in my parents' pastures as cows, which actually, to me, also full circle to entrepreneurship stuff. I actually took my projects. I started showing when I was 9, I believe. And I was mainly in the breeding heifer avenue. And
Yep.
the reason really my dad set me on that avenue because he was building a business for me that would help pay for my college. And so that's essentially where that program ties back into stuff is if you approach it like a business, which is what it's intended to be, you know, there's a lot of learning flexibility there. And each of those supervised agriculture experiences, those students are required to keep a record book. So they're keeping up with their expenses. They're keeping up with everything that they need to know to, you know, turn it around. And sometimes I think that even for me, you know, I got out of high school and I looked and I was like, whoa, I do know how to do this stuff. You know, you don't really realize it until after the fact.
Ashley, I absolutely love that. So I have to ask, what is Texas FFA's big, hairy, audacious goal? We talk about that a lot here on Aggie Growth Hacks, you know, and I'm just curious, what's y'all's big, hairy, audacious goal?
You know, I think that ultimately student success, that's a big, huge, broad goal to have. But no matter what in our programs that we have across the state, and I think that our teachers across the state would probably echo me as well. It's finding those avenues for student success, whatever they may be. And to me, that's, you know, a very broad overview of what that goal is. But I don't think that goal is ever going to change in our program. Ultimately, it's going to be student success. Personally, I do think that another goal that I have, you know, after being in, you know, the ag ed world for about 10 years now, I think also it's important for any entrepreneur to always continue to have that goal to grow your skills professionally. And I think that that is another open-ended big goal that, you know, is something that's important, but it sounds very audacious but it's so dang easy to get complacent. And I think that ties back into, you know, our programs as well with Texas FFA and then National FFA organization is expanding our space for those students and really finding those careers in agriculture and the skill sets that they need to continue to live the best possible life that they can and be successful in the career that they choose.
Well, actually, some of that student success, I think, can be quantified in the big conventions that you have. And this is dropping right near the summer months. So tell us a little bit about the 2023 convention that y'all are working on and anticipate.
Yes. So, to me, this is one of the most exciting times of the year. We get to basically, if you really think about it, our year all adds up, you know, to being able to celebrate student success. I think I'm echoing that same sentiment over and over again, but it really is a good foundation. But we have every summer, it rotates in some different cities, but this year we're in Dallas at the Dallas Convention Center. But we have, you know, around 15,000 students and guests come to one location for 5 days to really celebrate, you know, the great things that our students are doing. We have some few contests that are conducted at state convention, but most of our programmatic contests are spread throughout the year. And so this is a great time to just come together, celebrate that. And then there's also a lot of leadership development opportunities and ag education resources that we have at the event to really also expand those students' experiences and allow them to continue to grow in their development as well. But it's a very fun event. There's lots of lasers, lots of smoke. A very large LED screen stage. For me, it's so cool I grew up going to this event, you know, that this is where every July, you know, I would go with my dad. I was the little kid on the school bus going with all the high school kids. And it's so cool now for me to see my graphics, my, the work that I do on that big screen. It's still surreal to do that. And I think that, like I said earlier, it's my way of giving back. But it's just at the end of that week, it is so fulfilling to see how excited and energized our students are for the next year. One of my jobs is, you know, monitoring and creating content for social media. You really see that manifest through social media after that event and during that event. And it is so cool to see how excited our students are for our program and how passionate they really are.
That's so awesome. Absolutely love that. And that's going to take us into the lightning round. So the lightning round rules are really simple. You have less than a minute to answer any question. Are you ready, Ashley?
I guess so. As y'all have learned through this whole interview, I'm not, but I'm very long-winded. So this is a challenge.
You're doing great.
All right. So let's start it off with, what is your favorite hack? This can be personal, business, anything goes here because we are Aggie Growth Hacks.
Honestly, Google. You can learn anything if you Google it, but know your sources and make sure your sources are credible. That is another thing that I'm learning and I'm trying to teach any students that I come in contact with is, you can find a solution to anything. Teach yourself how to do anything, but just also make sure that the source that you're learning from is credible and you're learning it correctly.
Ashley, what is your favorite bit of advice and a red ass 13 extra points if you can tell us how you applied it?
I think it leads back to growth. And that sounds so cliche, but always continue to find new ways to grow and continue to expand whatever craft that you are involved in. I think that there's a lot of ways of doing that, but really applying that to your life is something that's so important. And professional development is how I've done it. I've been trying to find new ways of doing it, but also challenging myself to not get complacent. I am a perfectionist when it comes to the creative content that I make. Most of my coworkers would probably say overly critical of myself, but I think that keeps me on my toes of wanting to create, the best things that I possibly can.
So Ashley, what is your superpower?
I think versatility personally. And I think a lot of that does come from my ag education experience and being involved in a few different things. But in my role, I'm the communications coordinator for Texas FFA, but that comes with graphic design, news writing, video production, podcasting, magazine editing and layouts, social media content and management, branding. So to be able to do all of those roles, I've had to use Google and teach myself a lot of things. YouTubing and troubleshooting things comes very frequently in my position. But I think that that's, kind of my superpower is figuring things out, whether I'm doing it well or not.
That's great. Well, what gets you out of bed and excited about Texas FFA?
I think that y'all probably can guess, but it's our students, our members. I was one of them, and I see the potential that each and every one of them have. There's something so fun. I'm going to briefly put this in here. I have a student that I've worked with since he was a freshman. I've known him since he was a freshman. And this past October, he was elected as the Western Region Vice President for the National FFA. He's one of 6 students. And so being able to see that growth that he's had from when he was a freshman in high school to now, it's just so incredible. And it's what keeps me doing what I do.
Love that. Well, Ashley, how can the Aggie Network get in touch with you and support you moving forward?
So we're always looking, for supporters to get, involved in our programs. You can follow Texas FFA on all social media platforms, but we also have what's called the Corduroy Network that we just established about a year ago. And essentially, it's a way to connect individuals to want to give back locally as far as their time, if they want to judge contests, if they want to get involved with a local ag teacher, if they want to, this is essentially a list you can get placed on to get involved. And to get on that, you can find that on our website at texasffa.org. You can find it on our social medias. But you can also email roster@texasffa.org, and they can get you connected. But as you can see, I'm very passionate about our programs, and there's a lot of ways to get connected, whether it's on the local level or state level. And if you're an FFA member or have a kid that was an FFA member, or you're just interested in supporting, great students that are doing great things, reach out, get involved, because there's always room for more people to, support our young people.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us, to let us learn a little bit more about Texas FFA. This is a little bit different of the podcast than we normally have, not necessarily focusing on one specific business, but to hear about how this great organization is pouring into the future leaders, the future entrepreneurs, the future ag and ranch entrepreneurs, leaders, whatever. That is so cool. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for what your organization does. And
well, thank you for having us. This is a great opportunity to talk about what we love. And the Aggie Network is very involved in, with Texas FFA. In the spring, y'all will probably see quite a few kids in College Station for some judging contests. So there's a lot of blue corduroy that's, in that sea of maroon.
Well, how about that, Ags? Was that pretty cool or what? I know that I took a lot out of that with talking with Ashley. What was your biggest takeaways there, Greg?
Well, I loved how the FFA is all about pouring into the next generation of leaders and really just saying, okay, how can we not only give them the book smarts of what leadership is, but then also applying the hands-on experience and to pull that into an entrepreneurial setting is to say, okay, how can we set up a situation where you as a young entrepreneur have an animal that you have to care for, and you have to care for 365 days a year. I mean, that's not, I know it's not the same, but it's kind of like being an employee-employer, right? I mean, if you have an employee, you have to care for them 365 days out of the year. You have to make sure that they're taken care of and that you are allowing them to grow and to do what they have been called to do. And so really to have that hands-on experience of how to take care of people, how to manage your finances, how to think out strategically, how to make sure that you're actually going to be making money at this whole endeavor. That was something that for someone who was not raised in an agricultural background, it's been really, really cool to see, but then also to hear her talk about how they're doing that on the statewide level. And that's awesome. What about you, Chris? What did you take away?
No, and I 100% agree with you on yours, and I was in FFA as a high schooler, and I raised a pig, and was part of that. So I 100% understand exactly their journey that they go through every single year. My biggest takeaway, I would say, would be personal growth. She talked about it a lot. And as someone that is in constant learning mode, and that's just because of the industry that I'm in, marketing is constantly moving, all that kind of stuff. But I'm also, as an entrepreneur, and most entrepreneurs that I know are always trying to better themselves. Almost every single entrepreneur that I know, hands down, read books, listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks. They're constantly feeding the most important muscle, and that's our brains, and really trying to better ourselves and to sharpen that sword so that we can better our own businesses, if that makes any sense.
100%.
All of that, translates into our businesses as an entrepreneur. So it is super, super important, in my opinion, to do stuff like this right here. We're exactly what we're doing right now, right? Listening to podcasts and listening to audiobooks and reading books. It's very important to do that, I think. Personal growth.
Well, Ags, that's going to do it for this episode of Aggie Growth Hacks. We hope that you connect with Ashley in your local FFA chapter. If that's something that excites you, that you want to be poured into, we hope that you connect with Chris and I. Check out aggiegrowthhacks.com, where you can listen to this episode. You can hear our previous episodes, and make sure that you hit like and subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening to so that we can get the Aggie Growth Hacks message out to even more people.
We want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M University. Since 1999, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship has served as the hub of entrepreneurship for Texas A&M. If you're an Aggie entrepreneur or even a entrepreneur, head on over to their website to find a program that's right for you. Just go to aggiegrowthhacks.com/McFerrin right now. Well, join us next time when we connect with another great Aggie entrepreneur and learn how they hack their growth. Until then, I'm Chris Hunter.
And I'm Greg Martin. Thanks, Nick.